but it's not real regular because we have a really special audience here tonight. I'd like to call the meeting to order at this time and first invite you to stand and join us in an invocation tonight led by Father Kyle Logan, and immediately following that I will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So you're invited to stand.
Almighty God, our Heavenly Father, send down on those who hold public office, especially Bob, Beth, Tara, Eric, Shane, Jim, Brian, and Grace, the spirit of wisdom, charity, and justice, that with steadfast purpose they may faithfully serve in their offices to promote the well-being of all people. And Father, we pray that you bless these third graders, and we thank you for their efforts in helping name our city park. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you, Father Logan. Father Logan is with the Grace by the Sea Church. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I feel like I'm at school again.
I know.
That's wonderful.
That was cool. Yeah, I totally agree. That was very, very cool. So tonight's meeting is being streamed live on YouTube and Facebook and will be broadcast on cable channel 10, HD 1090, following the meeting. Attendees are participating in person and some via teleconference. Guests that are included in staff presentations will be excused at the conclusion of the agenda item as appropriate. So I'm not going to ask for a roll call because I think we have a full council here. I am going to welcome our newest councilor, Chris Wittgenstein. Welcome to Oak Harbor City Council. It's sure nice to see you. Nice to have you with us. Okay, with that said, we'll move on to the agenda and ask if there are any changes. Doesn't look like it, so the agenda will be approved as presented, and we'll move then right into our proclamation. Our first item on our agenda is actually our proclamation for the Parks and Recreation, and for that I believe we have our Park and Rec Director, Brian Smith.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Since 1985, the U.S. House of Representatives has designated Parks in July as Parks and Recreation Month. And every year, people in the United States have celebrated Parks and Recreation Month in July to promote building strong, vibrant, and resilient communities through the power of parks and recreation, and to recognize the full-time parks and recreational professionals, along with hundreds of thousands of part-time and seasonal workers and volunteers that maintain our country's local, state, and community parks. This year's theme, which is set by the National Parks and Recreation Association, is Where Community Grows, celebrating the vital role parks and recreation play in bringing people together, providing essential services, and fostering the growth of our communities. We present to you a recommendation by the Parks Board for approval of the proclamation designating July as Parks and Recreation Month in the city of Oak Harbor.
Okay, so I'm looking for a volunteer to read the proclamation. Thank you, Mr. Stuckey.
You have the proclamation.
I do have the proclamation. Here we go.
So I'll read the proclamation here. Whereas Parks and Recreation is an integral part of communities throughout this country, including the city of Oak Harbor, and whereas Parks and Recreation promotes health and wellness, improving the physical and mental health of people who live near parks, and whereas Parks and Recreation positively impacts mental health by increasing cognitive performance and well-being, and alleviating illnesses such as depression, attention deficit disorder, and Alzheimer's, and whereas Parks and Recreation encourages physical activities by providing space for popular sports, hiking trails, swimming pools, and many other activities designated to promote active lifestyles. And whereas Parks and Recreation programming and activities are critical to childhood development, And whereas Parks and Recreation increases a community's economic prosperity through increased property values, expansion of the local tax base, increased tourism, the attraction and retention of businesses, and crime reduction. And whereas Parks and Recreation is fundamental to the environmental well-being of our community, and whereas Parks and Recreation is essential infrastructure that makes our communities resilient in the face of natural disasters and climate change, and whereas our parks and natural recreation areas ensure the ecological beauty of our community and provide a place for children and adults to connect with nature and recreate outdoors, and whereas the U.S. House of Representatives has designated July as Parks and Recreation Month, and whereas the City of Oak Harbor recognizes the benefit derived from parks and recreation resources. Now therefore be it resolved that we, Mayor Robert Severns, and the council members of the City of Oak Harbor do hereby proclaim July as Park and Recreation Month in the City of Oak Harbor.
Appreciate that. I'm not sure I remember the last time that we actually designated the Parks and Recreation Month of July so early during the month of June. We must have a big party planned or something. Oh, it will be July 4th pretty soon, won't it? Okay, good. Well, okay, the next item on our agenda is the fun stuff. When I first heard about the opportunity to partner with the Oak Harbor School District, which we so often do at the city, and then could do it on a level like this, a third grade class involved with naming our park, I thought pretty cool stuff. And now we have so many of them here tonight, and we appreciate you coming. We hope that someday you'll want to be a city councilor or a mayor, because who knows? I never thought in the third grade that I was going to be here either. So welcome tonight. I'm going to call on our Park and Rec Director, Brian Smith, again. And I believe after we have this little ceremony that we're going to stop for a few minutes and try to get a picture. And then I'll have a little presentation at that time too. So go ahead, Brian.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'll be brief in this presentation because I would like to turn the time over to the real superstars tonight to give the best part of the presentation here. So this occurred during our planning for the Arbor Day celebration. We had located tree planting opportunities at what we call Well Site 10. It's adjacent to Broadview Elementary School. And Jenny Hunt, the principal of Broadview Elementary School, was very gracious in allowing us to do that planning with her and her staff and to invite the students to that event. During that planning process, the concept of naming Well Site 10 at Broadview Elementary School as a competition leading up to the Arbor Day celebration was discussed in the Parks Board. And that special process for a naming campaign was discussed with the school district, recommended by the Parks Board, and we presented it to Mayor and Council during the Arbor Day presentation. So it is the policy of the City of Oak Harbor to choose names for public parks and park and recreation facilities based upon the site's relationship to criteria set forth by council, whether it be a significant factor in the neighborhood, a geographic or common usage identification, a natural or geological feature, a historical figure, a place, event, or other instance of historical or cultural significance, or perhaps an individual who has made a significant contribution to the community. The classes at Broadview Elementary School, under the direction of Principal Jenny Hunt, held activities to nominate a park name for their class submission. The park name nominations were announced by Mayor Pro Tem Heisen at the Arbor Day celebration, and then were presented to the Parks Board for review and selection of the winning nominations based on the city's policy for designating names for public parks. And the winning class was Mr. Tom Karney's third grade class. There were many great, yes. There were many great and very creative names, and we've actually held on to a few for future designation of parks because we love them so much. The name that was presented by Tom Karney's class was Explorer Park. Some of the factors that the park board felt was appropriate for the naming of this particular parkland was that Explorer Park, in part, was chosen because Broadview Elementary School students are known as explorers. Explorer Park gives a sense of stewardship to the students to care for the natural spaces around them. Each day, many students will pass by Explorer Park and watch the trees that they planted during the Arbor Day event there grow along with them. And I'd like to turn the time over to Mr. Tom Karney and his class to tell you a little bit about how they came up with this designation and what the park means to them and a little bit of the process.
Want to thank the Parks Department for putting on the amazing Arbor Day event. And it was pretty special to watch all of our students experience, planting the trees and learning a little bit about what the Parks Department does for our community. So thank you all for putting that event on for us. That was pretty special. And all the volunteers, a lot of people involved in that. We appreciate that. Thanks to the City Council and the Parks Department for inviting us to be here tonight. We really appreciate it. Now I'd like to call my students up, whether or not you have a speaking part, if we could kind of line up here. Let's go ahead and line up in number order. And if you don't have a speaking part, let's get on either side, okay? Number 1, number 2, line up. Okay, I'm going to have my students explain how we chose the name Explorer Park. Okay. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, can we use a microphone there? Okay.
I'll go ahead. Is it, how long is it? Hold on, let me squeeze through you, Emmy. Okay. First, I'd like to start by just having everybody say their name and introduce themselves.
Zachary, Brooklyn, Sadie, Sierra, Donald, Emmy, Sharon, Athena, Matthew, Channing.
Channing, all right. Now, I'm going to have them explain to you guys how we chose the name.
Thank you for inviting us to attend the City Council meeting.
We're excited that the City Council chose to name it Explorer Park for the park next to our school.
Our class brainstormed ideas and came up with several possible names for this park. We ended up choosing the name Explorer Park.
We picked this name because the students at Broadview Elementary are known as the Explorers.
It was our pleasure to be able to participate in this park naming event.
We are looking forward to being able to enjoy and take care of Explorer Park.
Thank you all again for including us in this meeting.
Thank you all.
So I'm going to read this from from up here, and then I think what we'll do is ask council to come down and join you right outside the front door. We'll recess for 10 minutes or so during that time. Oh, recess. I hope the teacher brought ice cream. So this plaque I'm going to give you to take with you back to your class says, in recognition of Broadview Elementary School and Mr. Karney's third graders, for the official designation of parks land located at 900 Southwest 6th Avenue, henceforth named Explorer Park.
Also, I forgot one point. So the kids did some artwork because they participated in the tree planting. Parents, if you could hold up some of the artwork that the kids did.
Oh, that is cool. Wow. Thank you very much. You can leave some of those with us if you'd like. Okay, let's recess for 10 minutes. We'll see you right outside the door there for a picture. So we do have a video, is that correct? Well, why don't you go ahead and start that? I'll call the meeting back to order in a few more minutes. I think I said 10 minutes on the break. Yeah. I
Hey,
didn't
Mayor,
think,
before you do that, can I request that the kids come back for every Pledge of Allegiance? That was great.
that was really fun.
I'd like the video right now is being rendered into that video.
It won't play, you say?
Yeah, because I'm overlaying it, unfortunately, when Brian is talking, getting rid of him talking. It's on the video for him today, putting that video on top of his talk right now.
Good or not?
He's combining it with our meeting video. So
It's still in production. Well, there we go. There we go. And there's no meeting. I am.
I will just make a comment on this event. Was the most well-organized, not on our side, on the school side, the most well-organized event. It absolutely blew me away, and a huge credit to both the parents of the students and the teachers and the staff at Broadview Elementary School. Very successful event, wholly in part because they were just such well-behaved kids. I was expecting absolute chaos, and it wasn't that way at all. And so it was fantastic, and we planted a lot of trees there. And appreciate members of the council that came out and helped us out with that.
So I think I'll reconvene our regular meeting here of the Oak Harbor City Council. It's June 6th. We had a short recess to take some pictures with the Mr. Karney's third grade class from Broadview Elementary School, and we've been having a lot of fun. We've been on recess with them. So meeting's back in order, and we'll move on at this time to our citizen comment period. This is a time when citizens may comment on consent agenda items or subjects of interest not listed on the agenda at this time. Citizens will have the opportunity to comment on the remaining agenda items during the meeting as appropriate. Citizens can also visit our website prior to our meetings for methods to submit public comment or contact our city clerk, Julie Nestor, by phone or email. When submitting comments, please include your name and address. Public comments sent anonymously will be shared with the mayor and council, but will not be displayed. We have received 2 public comments since our last regular meeting. One from Michael Eves regarding the installation of public electric vehicle chargers on city property, and one from Chelsea Caesar regarding concessions at Windjammer Park and the baseball fields. Their comments are displayed on our screen now. Okay, are there any members of our public here who would like to speak? I know we had a couple sign up on the list, but it looks like they may have been involved in the presentation, the park presentation. Anybody else here that would like to speak for public comment? If so, we'll give you 3 minutes and just ask for your name, okay? Not seeing any, we will close the public comment period then at this time. Move on to our consent agenda. You received that in your packet, I know, and I'm going to ask council if they've got any questions or input. Yes, Councilor Munns.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to pull 4F because I know that hopefully should be new representative is in the audience. Would like him to be introduced to the council members that may not know him.
Perfect. So we will pull 4F and we'll accept the rest of them as presented. And
Wait.
oh, I'm sorry.
Mayor, I think also we have the candidate in D&E, or at least D, is definitely here. So I'd like to hear from any of the
I would too,
appointees
yes.
that are here.
So we'll pull all the candidates that are with us here this evening and make sure that they get introduced. The rest of the agenda items in the consent agenda will be approved as presented. So we have, I believe, is Tracy here from Arts Commission? Tracy Davidson? Okay, not seeing her. How about our Planning Commission? We have position number 1, Elaine Gore. Elaine, welcome. Thank you for coming.
Stand up, yes.
Gosh, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Joshua Engelbrecht. Okay, and then Ryan Bradley. Ryan, thank you. Welcome. Wow. Okay, so we've got new members there, and those 4 were not necessarily approved, so I would entertain a motion to approve those. Yes, Councilor Munns.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that we approve the list of the new appointees to our different commission boards.
Is there a second? Yes, we've got a motion and a second to approve the list of our new commission people. And that motion was made by Councilor Munns and seconded by Mayor Pro Tem. All in favor signify by raising your right hand. Okay, that passes unanimously. So thank you. We are on, yes, and welcome. Gosh. We are now on to the mayor's comments, I believe. I have a few, but not many. The Investment Committee, my thanks to Councilmember Marshall for accepting an appointment to serve on the city's Investment Committee, filling the seat vacated by Councilmember Evans' resignation. As a reminder to community members, advisory board volunteer opportunities are listed on our website. Congratulations to the class of 2023. The city is proud to offer our congratulations to all of the 2023 Oak Harbor grads, including this message created by Oak Harbor School District graphic design students on our digital display downtown. Okay. You got to see it there briefly. Good. Thank you. City Council summer meeting schedule. The City Council holds just one regular meeting and workshop in June and July. Upcoming meetings will be workshop June 28th, regular council meeting July 11, and workshop July 26th. We are on casual dress during this time, so just wanted to re-announce that between now and the end of August, we'll go to a casual dress schedule. And now I'll turn to the council for council comments. Anybody got any comments? Boy, quiet bunch tonight. Wow. Okay. So then we'll move on to item number 6A on our agenda. 6A is an ordinance number 1976, building code updates, amending Oak Harbor Municipal Code 17.05.030 and 17.05.060. And for our presentation tonight, we have our Development Services Director, Mr. David Cool. Welcome, Dave.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Tonight we have a building code update for you. This is part of a continuing series that Ginger and I are working on to continue to make improvements in our building code, as well as in our systems that we have and our processes. So Title 17, that is the section of the Oak Harbor Municipal Code that implements the building code. And so we have two sections tonight to be updated. Section 1705030 is the plan check fee. And what we would do is change the timing of the collection of the plan check fees to upfront rather than after 6 months. So what happens is someone will submit their plans, and then the building department determines that they are complete and they have everything they need, then we'll contact them and they'll be able to go ahead and pay their fee. This is a standard process that's done everywhere. Most jurisdictions collect the plan check fee up front. And this will ensure that the city collects the money and it is not still owed later in the process. There was an example here of where we did all the plan review work, used our expertise, and then the project didn't go forward, and so essentially we lost out on that revenue. So we want to make sure that doesn't happen again. The next section of Title 17 is 1705060, and that is the permit expiration. What it would do is it changed the expiration of a building permit from 6 months to 2 years. And this would be a benefit to our builders. It would eliminate the constant contact we have to stay in touch with them to keep their building permit active. It would also make sure that it doesn't get stalled out while we're waiting to update a permit. So a 2-year permit is actually a common occurrence in many jurisdictions, and so we just want to get with the times and make sure that we're doing what other jurisdictions do as well. So this is our recommended motion, and we're available, Ginger and I, for any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Cool. Before we turn to council, I'd like to confirm with our city clerk that we've received no public comments regarding this.
That's correct, Mayor. We've received no public comment on this item.
Thank you, Julie. So now I'll turn to council for questions or inputs. Yes, Councilor Munns.
Thank you, Mayor. One question I had is on the permit expiration, extending it, which I think is a great idea. Will this add cost to that permit or not? It just eases the time, because I know it's hard to get building supplies. You can't get some of the workers in when you think you are and all of this, but will it add an additional cost because of the time period?
Thank you, Councilmember Munns. There will be no additional cost with extending this to 2 years. And then actually after 2 years, you'll be eligible for a 1-year extension on top of that. So it'll be a 3-year time frame.
I saw that. That was a good idea. I know how, especially during COVID, how things got jumbled up and yes, no, and time limit and all of this. So I think this is a good idea. Thank you. And thank you, Ginger, too, for it.
Open public hearing.
I'm sorry.
Mayor.
Oh, we got to open a public hearing on this. Well,
Yes.
for crying out loud. Sorry about that. I should read my notes, I guess. So I will open the public hearing at this time and ask if there's anybody here that would like to speak to this that is here, and if not, I'll close that public meeting about as quick as I opened it. Okay? Seeing nobody, then I'll close the public meeting. Yes, thank you. Thank you for helping me there. Anyone else? Questions or, yes, Councilor Weiser.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Cool. Like I said in the workshop when you first presented, this is a no-brainer, brings us in a line with everybody around us, and quite frankly, it brings us to where I think a lot of us thought we were. So I would like to move to recommend the City Council. I'd like to move to approve the text amendment to the Oak Harbor Municipal Code relating to plan check fees and building permit expiration, Ordinance 1976.
Second.
So we've got a motion that reads pretty darn close to the recommended action. Close enough, I'm going to not read it again unless council would like that. That motion was made by Councilor Wiesner. I'll give the second to Councilor Munns. Any other questions or input? Seeing none, all in favor signify by raising your right hand. That passes unanimously. Nice job.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Mr. Cool. Okay, we'll go on to item number 7. Item number 7 is ordinance number 1977, adopting a new Oak Harbor Municipal Code, Chapter 9A.250, relating to the use and possession of controlled or counterfeit substances or legend drugs. And we have our police chief, Chief Dresker. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. So I've got a slide, and I'll just follow along on the slide, make it simple, and then open up for questions, and I have a proposal for the night. So what we're reviewing tonight is adopting a new Oak Harbor Municipal, I'm going to read from here, Code, Chapter 9A.250, relating to use and possession or controlled or counterfeit substances or legend drugs, providing for severability, authorizing corrections, and establishing an effective and expiration date. So I'm just reading, I put in here from a AWC email regarding the Blake fix. So Blake was the case law that messed everything up in our state regarding narcotics. So the Blake fix bill passes legislation during a one-day special session. On May 16th, the legislature convened for the first special session in 6 years. They worked to reach agreement on the so-called Blake fix to permanently address the criminality of drug possession and use in the wake of state Supreme Court in 2021 State versus Blake decision. Senate Bill 5536 passed with bipartisan support, and the governor promptly signed it. So as you probably know, they went out of session without coming to an agreement, basically along party lines. Governor said, we need something. They came back and did a quick fix. So the current situation with, I guess, the old law, a suspect must first be given referral for treatment for the first 2 times he or she is found in possession of cocaine, methamphetamine, fentanyl, all these narcotics that used to be felony level crimes. When the state did this a year and a half or so ago, it didn't set up a system to track these referrals, and there really wasn't an effective treatment system in effect. And then only after the 2 referrals, which were difficult to track statewide and even within a jurisdiction, could an officer issue a citation. A citation for possession of narcotics currently is a misdemeanor based on that year-and-a-half law, and that's the lowest level offense that's available within our state is a misdemeanor crime. I'm not aware of jurisdictions who've been active in enforcing any of that based on the way the law is and some of the complications in it. So what can we do at this point? So although the state law preempts the field of setting penalties for violations of the state's Uniform Controlled Substance Act, Chapter 6950 RCW, that's our laws, a revised code of Washington, cities are authorized to enact local laws that are not consistent with the state, that are not inconsistent with the state law, because the Uniform Controlled Substance Act does not expressly permit or otherwise protect the public use of controlled substance. The city is authorized to regulate or prohibit that use. So what does that mean? So they're probably a little out of order, but just to clarify for you, so the new law that's passed will take effect, parts of it July 1, but won't be fully in place until August 15th. So there's a gap of about a month and a half. So that gap is what we're talking about here as far as for a city ordinance. So our options, your options at this point are kind of twofold. I'll read those. You can do nothing at this point, in which case the state law will become fully effective on August 15th, 2023. At that point, and not until then, possession and public consumption of these drugs, the ones I just named and others, will be a gross misdemeanor at state level, and officers will be able to issue notices of arrest or take into custody persons found in possession. The court system, these are my words, the court system will have to work out all of the details as outlined in a 48-page bill. This full bill has a lengthy and cumbersome treatment option process. Again, my opinion, I've talked to several prosecutors who are still not sure how things are going to be completed. Option number 2, so that number 1 is we don't do anything, you don't pass anything, and August 15th, the state law will become effective and it'll be a gross misdemeanor. From July 1 to August 15th, if you do nothing, basically there's no penalty, we won't be enforcing anything. Option 2, adopt the suggested ordinance which will make possession of these narcotics and public consumption of narcotics crimes punishable as a gross misdemeanor level within the city. The city ordinance would only be in effect from July 1 to August 15th, when state law would supersede and ours would sunset. So we have the ability, and of course, and I know Hillary's on, I've talked with Hillary, we have the ability to enact a city ordinance that makes possession of these drugs, methamphetamine, cocaine, et cetera, a gross misdemeanor for that July 1 date to August 15th to cover that month and a half gap that the legislators have left us with. So if we find somebody in possession or public consumption within that period of time and you pass this ordinance, we can cite them or arrest them under a city ordinance violation, a criminal violation. So a couple items of note, just as you discuss this. City ordinances are not applicable to juveniles. Juveniles are covered under a state code. So that'll be waiting for, that'll be waiting for the state law to take effect on August 15th. The state has preempted cities and counties from enacting ordinances which make possession of drug paraphernalia legal. The state and legislators in their infinite wisdom have made it legal to possess drug paraphernalia. We can't supersede that, so we couldn't criminalize that even if we wanted to. Any arrests from July 1st are likely on to August 15th are likely going to be dealt with in a manner ultimately consistent with the 48-page legislative bill regarding treatment options, et cetera. So for that 6 weeks, if we're arresting people, how they're going to be adjudicated, they'll probably likely mirror what the state law is going to be, but that's up to the prosecutors, and just so you're aware. Some other jurisdictions are passing similar ordinances, some are not, and are waiting for the state law to take effect. And I've got a couple samples from local. If you want, feel free to ask me and I can pass that along. I've talked with some of them. Adopting this ordinance provides, so there's a discussion, and I've talked with Hillary and others about this, should we just leave it alone because the other one will take effect? So my stance was, if I'm a police officer out on the street and July 10th, I encounter somebody with methamphetamine who really needs to be held accountable for that methamphetamine, and we don't pass something, I'm gonna, as the officer, say, geez, that kind of stinks. I could have dealt with this. So for me and for my officers on the street, I think it's better to have that tool. I can't guarantee we're gonna have a whole bunch of arrests. Hopefully nobody's using drugs, but they are. But at least that gives the officers a tool and the ability to make those arrests if you pass this. If you don't, they will wait till August 15th. So that's what that does. The 48-page legislative bill is attached. I attached it to there. I'm sure you all read through it, 48 pages. It's a good read. And then I also wanted to comment too, because I went out riding with some of my officers today on several different occasions. At 4:30, we got a call of a gentleman down here smoking methamphetamine, was what the caller said. By the time we get there, he was no longer smoking. If I had pulled up on my bike, which was how I pulled up, and if I'd have seen him smoking, and we had our city ordinance in effect, I could have cited him, arrested him for public consumption. Now, when a state law takes effect, you can't do both. You can't do possession and public consumption. You got to pick one or the other. In this particular case, he wasn't doing any of that in front of me, but any misdemeanor level crime, and when the state law takes effect, it's the same way. It has to be an on-view crime by a police officer. It's different. Felony levels are different. There are some misdemeanor exceptions. It's called the Misdemeanor Exception Act. I think it's covered under RCW 10. But it changes in the future regardless. So, the proposal. I guess I got one more. So whereas the Washington State legislators on May 16, 2023 passed a second substitute Senate Bill 5536 that will, effective August 14, 2023, make intentional possession or public use of small amounts of illegal drugs a modified gross misdemeanor. And whereas the City Council finds it is in their best interest to establish a local ordinance to provide similar regulation for the period of time between July 1 and August 14, 2023, and the suggested motion is to adopt the ordinance as proposed, making intentional possession or public use of illegal drugs a gross misdemeanor beginning July 1st, 2023, and ending August 14th, 2023, when the modified state law will take full effect. That's the suggested motion, And just to pre-answer a question, yes, you wouldn't have to take any other action after that. It would just sunset at that date if you pass this. And I'm open for questions.
Thank you, Chief. Before we turn to council, we want to make sure we've gotten no input from our public.
That's correct, Mayor. We've
Okay.
received no input.
Okay, now let's go back to council. Councilor Stuckey?
Couple of questions for you, Chief. In your opinion, is this a game changer? Like, is this going to be heavily enforced? I mean, you said, you don't envision a lot of arrests or anything like that, but is this going to give you a lot of tools that you haven't had previously? Is this going to have a big impact on our community?
If I honestly answered that question, I'd say no, it's not a game changer. I don't know if it's going to have a big impact, and there's discussion as we looked at this and suggestions back and forth. You could not pass this, and we'll go along as we have for the next month and a half, which really means no enforcement. And then August 15th, we'll act under the state law. So it's just for that month and a half. Again, 4:30 this afternoon, I went down. If that guy would have been smoking in front of me, as it currently stands, he would have been sent on his way.
I'm sorry, I mean the state law. I mean, I understand it's a stopgap. It's a stopgap that mirrors
Yeah.
the state law. Is that overall going to make a big impact on your
Are you talking about stopgap or the state law?
Well, as I understand, they're both pretty much the same. One sunsets and the other begins.
That's correct.
So this new law, just think of this, the city and the state as one, just continuing. Is that going to be a big game changer?
The new state law?
Correct.
It's not a game changer. It is a muddled mess, in my opinion. And
That's what I'm asking.
And I think if you've heard anything from the legislator, it's going to be brought back up again when they go back in session. They couldn't reach an agreement under the current one. They got back in and said, we got to do something. Governor's called it a special session. My guess is behind the line, he says, if you don't come out of that, I'm going to call it back into a special session again, but I don't know. It's just, there's some prosecutorial discretion taken away from the prosecutors from each community who are dealing with the crime in their community. I know they're frustrated with it, at least the ones I've talked to. The advantage it does for us, it's better than what we had. What we had with the two referral system and that mess was bad. What this does do for us is it gives the police officer the ability, I find somebody with narcotics or using the narcotics and they need to be arrested for it or given a ticket, I can now do that without worrying about this referral system and all this mess. So I can make that arrest, and then the system's got to figure out what to do with the person, and that's going to be the complicated process. The treatment options and all that, we want people to get treated, right? Everybody does. You want to get people out of this cycle, but the system they got set up in there, in my opinion, is cumbersome, very cumbersome.
So
it'll help us as officers.
But you have to see them doing it. I mean, if you come in with someone who's obviously impaired, it doesn't help us too much in that regard.
And it really didn't on a felony level either. If somebody's in the downtown and they're not smacking of alcohol and they're impaired and we know they are, we at a felony level in the past could not do something with that person unless they're committing a crime that's otherwise accountable for. But just being under the influence has never been something we could take somebody into a custody for. It had to be a separate crime, just that. Unless it's, and we're not talking driving, right? That's always been an issue. So that part doesn't change, but it would be too long of a process. There's a certain amount of stuff we can do at a felony level based on evidence and witness descriptions provided to us that we don't have to see the crime. But there's also things where we have to see the crime, and that's at a misdemeanor level. But RCW 10 identifies certain things that are called misdemeanor exceptions. This does not fall into one of those. So it just complicates things a little bit.
What about cameras? I mean, we have cameras around town, and if you were to sit somewhere monitoring those cameras and you saw someone using all those cameras, could you, in theory, drive down there, and if they were still there, do anything, or do you have to physically see them in person?
There's a lot in that.
Yeah.
So if I'm watching the camera and I see somebody using, and there's another officer waiting down at the park, and I say, it's that guy in the red jacket and blue pants, I just witnessed him take a glass pipe and load up and smoke it, and my officer contacts him and doesn't see that, I mean, there's just so much, I can't see that it's narcotics from where I'm at. I can say it's consistent behavior with narcotics, right? It's a glass pipe. You don't smoke too much from a glass pipe other than narcotics. So there's a lot involved in that question.
And my last question, which you have answered, I'm just asking for clarification. So there's nothing that we can do on a city level to supersede these state laws that are taking effect? You said it's a muddled mess, but there's nothing that we can do to not make it a muddled mess on our level.
Yeah, and to be clear, make sure you understand that's my opinion.
No, I understand that.
There are some that probably think it's a very good law.
Sure.
We can't be inconsistent with state law. We can't be more severe or strict than state law. We can be less. And this is something that maybe, and our city attorney's probably sitting here, calling me, Kevin. So I don't know if she wants to give you more input on that. She might have a better answer for you on that.
Hillary, is there?
Or she's probably
I'm
saying,
happy to
don't
hop
call.
in. And no, I'm never, the chief does a great job of understanding this. He does a great job of explaining it. And essentially there's a concept called preemption, where when state law intends to occupy an entire field of regulation, the city can't step on the state's toes. The state law is going to prevail. And and I agree with the chief, terrible Band-Aid did was muddy the waters in such a way that the state law has been propagated. It occupies the field. We can't really do anything but adopt it by reference and follow the state law at this point, even though it's a terribly written law. One of the other things that is aggravating about this 6-week period is that some of this law goes into effect July 1st and some of the law goes into effect August 15th. That seems to have been a mistake or an oversight by the state legislature, which is another reason that we're proposing this Band-Aid for these 6 weeks. And another problem, again, is that not all the RCWs that were adopted by the Senate bill have been given RCW numbers. So it's not even as simple as adopting by reference the RCW numbers, because some of those have not yet been assigned. So we are really in a quagmire. The chief has done a really good job of explaining to you where we are, and he's going to do a very good job of explaining to his officers what needs to be done. Either one of these options before you today will work. The chief knows how to follow the state law if you don't adopt this local ordinance, but this local ordinance will provide a little bit of clarity to your residents and to your officers as to what exactly is happening for those 6 weeks.
Okay. Well, that kind of sums up my questions. Appreciate it, Chief. I was just making sure if there's ever anything we can do on a local level. I know we really can't, but if there ever is, please keep us apprised, because we need to be as tough on this as we possibly can to get people help. Yep. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Councilor Stuckey. Councilor Hoffmeyer.
Question for whoever can answer it here. So with the municipal law versus a state law, gross misdemeanor, does the financial prosecutorial burden shift at all?
Well, it shifted and it ain't going back. So I'm sorry, I don't mean to be flipping on it. With the state law, it's all city responsibility now. So with the previous felony law, with felony level narcotics, that was all county responsibility. I mean, that's just the way it's been set up forever. When it becomes a misdemeanor, gross misdemeanor, it's prosecuted at city level, and all those costs are now in our shoes. We prosecute misdemeanors and gross misdemeanors anyway, so it's just a matter of these narcotic level, paraphernalia was always a city thing, so we were always do that. That's gone away now, but it'll be city. What the exact cost will be, we don't know, how wide and spread, but it'll be our responsibilities in some degree anyways. So, and that's with if you do a fix now for that month and a half, it's the same, and then once state law takes effect, it's the same.
That was the way I understood that as well, and I mean, this is obviously a state issue as well, and maybe that's a next year legislative priority. Is some money coming back would be nice to help deal with this. The opioid settlement money that has came in and stuff, can any of that go to this, or can it go to the treatment portions of it at least?
Well, opioid money can be used for treatment. I mean, there's a lot of guidance on there what it can and cannot be used for. When you say to this, that's pretty broad. I mean, there's, as far as adjudication, punishment, court processes, I'm not sure it can be for that. For treatment, certainly, there's some options available for that. And I will say too, and I haven't explored this, and maybe somebody else knows this, but I would say that also the fines and punishment, or fines and stuff like that, should now come to us if and when they're paid, as compared to going to the county for that kind of thing. So You know, there'll be a whole change in that as to where that goes. So if somebody's fined $500 and they pay it, that'll probably come to us. I think in the past, it probably went to the county if it was a county level. So there'll be a whole bunch of changes like that. But we prosecute misdemeanors and gross misdemeanors anyways. This is just now one of those, these crimes are.
Perfect, thank you. Yeah, for me, I mean, even if this is a 45-day stopgap, crime and drug activity is not welcome in Oak Harbor, and I totally support this stopgap here.
Anyone else got any questions? Motions, maybe? Councilor Wiesner?
Can you bring that back up on the screen for us, Tim? Yeah, so Chief, we're happy to supply you the tools that you need, and I move that we adopt the ordinances proposed, making intentional possession or public drug use of illegal drugs a gross misdemeanor, beginning July 1st, 2023, and ending August 14th, 2023, when the modified state law will take full effect.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion that reads exactly like the suggested motion on the screen. That motion was made by Councilor Wiesner. I'm going to give that second to Councilor Stuckey. Any other questions or input? Seeing none, all in favor signify by raising your right hand. That passes unanimously. Boy, we are on a roll tonight.
Mayor, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chief. Okay, I believe that we are down to the last item on our agenda, and that is item number 9A, the sculpture placement, Angel de la Creatividad.
Angel of Creativity is the English.
Okay, I'm still
way of
working
saying it.
on
It's
that.
fine. We
Okay.
can use it.
And this evening, I believe we certainly have our Parks and Rec Director, Brian Smith, and it looks like if you need some help, you've got some lined up, but welcome, thank you. Take it away.
Thank you, Council. Last time you'll see me tonight, and hopefully this should be the last time you see this item in front of you. So, to give you a little bit of background, staff, Art Commission, Parks Board, the community members, all been working on this project since early 2021. Location at Flintstone Park was approved by council in February, and city staff met on site in March to discuss possible locations and any issues or considerations for the placement. We put together an installation committee comprised of members of the City Council, the Arts Commission, Parks Commission, Parks Board, and city residents. They met on site, discussed location proposals, made recommendation for placement of the statue. The professional services agreement between the city and the Sculpture Northwest was signed in April. We're currently doing borings for geotechnical analysis and applications. And those permit costs were, additional permit costs were divided up with Sculptures Northwest as directed by council and outlined in the agreement. So location was selected from 3 possible areas within the park. As a harbor-facing art piece, this location near the shoreline, highlighted there in red, was ideal and in line with the original intent. The location provides enough clearance for the loading and movement of hydroplanes, and which happens in that park there on the far side next to the dock, and is far enough back from the high water line to not trigger additional permitting expenses. The existing pavilion and flag staff locations were also considered during this meeting. And just to remind you, this is kind of how it will look. A rendering of the piece on the left there is the actual sculpture on a truck bed, and this on the right was a rendering of it in a park location. I think this is Windjammer Park, just to give you an idea. And then this next picture is a similar statue called Awaiting the Mariner in Dublin, Ireland. That's a famous landmark for the city there. Just to give you a kind of a sense of what the feel of the statue will look like next to the waterfront in the location of Flintstone Park. So staff recommends council approves the placement and installation of the statue as recommended by the installation committee. We wanted to just give a last chance for council to have any other questions answered or have any other discussion or any comments from members of the public. I'm happy to answer any questions for you.
Thank you, Brian. Before we turn to council, I'd like to verify that there have been no comments from the public.
That's correct, Mayor. We received no comment on this item.
Thank you, Julie. So I'll turn back to council for questions. Yes, Councilor Hoffmeyer.
Yeah, Brian, what's the teal color on the screen there?
So as part of the placement, if this location is selected, one of the things that the committee had talked about, just to give it a little better balance with a park, is we will take out that leg of the roundabout of the parking lot. We'll make some improvements and expand the entryway and the existing parking lot, and we'll resod that area in the teal just to give a little more of a footprint for park and grass area there. And those and funding for that is already appropriated and ready.
Awesome. Yeah, that really seems like that would increase the usable park space there quite a bit.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Councilor Munns.
Thank you, Mayor. The flagpole, have they talked to the base yet? Because I would be happy to take that on, if not, to move that over to where the memorial is near the college, or at least the plaque that was there. I know the flagpole is not much life left to it. Talking to Tally.
Yeah.
He's
So-
afraid that it will crumble
So-
or crumble in the cement.
Yeah, this was an item that was discussed when we all met on site, looking at that as one of the possible locations, and regardless if it wasn't, if we selected this site, which was the decision by the committee, having another large stature object right by there, maybe we want to look at relocating that. Councilor Munns has suggested relocating the Flagstaff to Veterans Memorial Park, which is actually a great location. I'm not sure why we didn't do that in the first place. But when we looked a little closer at it, it's not actually the plaque, it's the Flagstaff itself that is the gift. And so we want to make sure that we retain that. If there are improvements needed to the base of that, which we did have Tom Wade, our facilities manager, come and do an evaluation of that, and he recommended a few little improvements, tweaks that we could make, just to make sure that it's solid and we can shine it up, either leave it in the location or relocate it. But I'd recommend keeping the Flagstaff along with the plaque. Even if we do move that and perhaps move that Flagstaff in placement of the flagpole that's over there at Veterans Memorial. But we'll treat that as a separate project from this. Have not had those discussions yet, though, to answer your question. But we are having a planning meeting talking about the military appreciation picnic. I think that's in September around that same date.
Yes, it is.
Isn't
It's
that
the
right?
16th.
Yeah. So that might be a good date to do something like that.
Well, I was just thinking, there is not a flag down on that end, and we do have the lovely flagpole that is in front of our wastewater treatment plant. And so it's kind of, we could share the
Yeah,
wealth.
balance it out a little bit, yeah.
And balance it out. And so it's not, I don't know, he was concerned with that the Flagstaff itself wasn't in good condition, but if it is, but I guess I don't see why it couldn't be moved with the plaque.
Yeah.
I don't think it's, it is in stone, but I was going to say, it was a gift to the city, and they just placed it there. I don't think there was a significance why it was placed there. It could be anywhere along the, so I
No,
just.
not to that location.
Okay.
Yeah, so we did evaluate the Flagstaff. I think it definitely could use an aesthetic touch-up, but structurally it's sound, it's fine.
Oh, okay, well, that's nice to hear. All right, thank you.
Okay, Councilor Stuckey.
You started off with saying that was something that was appealing. I just want to confirm it. You said, hopefully this will be the last time this comes in front of you. Are we fairly confident about that?
This is the last time.
Okay, 'cause
As
I
long
think
as
the
you
public is
approve
tired
it,
about hearing this.
Once we get those permits, we'll start working towards it.
What's the ballpark timeframe? Under promise, over deliver.
Yeah, right, yeah. Fall.
Fall? Oh, well, that's fair. And I'm going to be diplomatic here to say that it's controversial. We all know that. There's no reason to rehash that. I would definitely...
As all good art is.
As all good art is. I would definitely encourage not moving the flagpole or the plaque, because the PR nightmare on something like that, it's not going to be good. do we have a PR plan for this? That might be a Sabrina question, but as this gets unveiled, and if for some reason we moved anything, do we have a PR plan in place? Because this is going to be viewed by some negatively.
I would say, yeah, Sabrina can pipe in here, but I'll start with the kind of comment here. This has been in discussion, and council last time, I think it was 45 minutes, internally to yourself, so, and certainly been on the agenda. So I think public-wise, there's been a lot of discussion about moving it and such, so we've done it very open. And Sabrina, you're welcome to, Sabrina Combs, to add comments there regarding notice.
Yeah, thank you, Blaine. So basically at this point, once we make whatever decision tonight, what we would do is start the process. I'd be working with Brian so that we can update the website, make sure that there's clear information for the public, include this process. We'll also have the recap of tonight's meeting going out so people know what's going on. But the goal is to make sure that we're informing the public as we go along throughout the process. So standard rule of operation, so to speak, but we would do more of a bang and making sure that we're telling people about it more through different communication methods, if that helps.
It does, just a separate post or something. I mean, I know not everyone reads the recap. I mean, you put a photo up there with a few sentences, that gets a lot of traction. So that kind of answers my question. Yeah. I appreciate it.
I can remember the days when we didn't have Sabrina working for us. And I can remember that kind of question coming to this council. Do we have a plan? Well, I'm going to tell you, Sabrina's got a plan just about every minute of every day and spends a lot of time thinking about these kind of things. So we'll do the best we can. Obviously, this piece of art has definitely, created some discussion in Oak Harbor, and that's for darn sure. I was surprised, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised about art anymore, but it sure took me a while to understand that how it is a very interesting process. And thank you to staff, because I know you've been very patient with us, and thank you to council, and thank you to our citizens for understanding. And it will still create questions, we know that, but we'll do the best we can, believe me. So having said that, turn to council for more questions or comments. We're looking for actually an approval of this, is that correct?
Yeah, approve the installation of the sculpture in the location recommended by the Placement Committee and the Parks Board and Arts Commission.
Okay. Other council questions or input? Okay, yeah, Councilor Munns?
I'll make the motion if there's no other discussion.
Great.
I recommend, or move that we approve the installation of the sculpture Angel of Creativity in the location recommended by the Placement Committee, Parks Board, and Art Commission.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. And that motion reads exactly like the recommended action in the packet. Motion was made by Councilor Munns, second by Mayor Pro Tem Heisen. Any other input or questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, same. Okay, that passes 6-1, I believe. So, okay, with that, I believe that we are at the end of our agenda. We didn't make it in 1 hour, but we were close. I wouldn't have bet on that in the beginning. I want to. 7:30. You had 7:30? Wow. Well, thank you for coming. Those that have joined us and stayed with us this long. Thank you to those out there watching. Always appreciate the input that we get. Thanks to staff, and with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Is there a second? With that, we will adjourn and signify by raising our hand and waving goodbye. Thank you.
I'm a little